So can horror movies avoid the dreaded golden sombrero here in 2020? Short answer is no. No, it can't.
A place where anything and everything is possible.
Your life is about to change forever. I hope you're ready.
So Fantasy Island is the latest piece of shit that Blumhouse has shoveled towards us, and it stars Michael Pena, Maggie Q, and a whole bunch of other fucking people I don't care about. Who gives a shit, honestly? Yeah, if you can't already tell, I loved this movie. There's just no other way to say it, but this movie was just a complete fucking mess right from the jump. I mean, first thing, turning something like Fantasy Island into this kind of horror thriller type movie, whatever the hell Blumhouse wanted it to be. God, I think that was just a major miscalculation. And, you know, they marketed this movie to be just that. They marketed this movie to be kind of like a horror movie. I mean, you look at the trailer, it gives you horror vibes. The movie itself is not really horror. It's more along the lines of like a thriller. So I think that's just Blumhouse's marketing department really dropping the ball there. I mean, what else is Blumhouse gonna destroy next? The Love Boat? I Dream of Jeannie? Do you remember Mr. Ed? Well, fuck that, because here comes Blumhouse's Mr. Dead. But getting into the plot of Fantasy Island, if you are not familiar with the old show, it usually revolves around a guest or a group of guests that arrive to the island, which is run by the mysterious Mr. Rourke, and the island grants one fantasy to each of its guests. Now, sometimes the fantasy works, sometimes the fantasy doesn't. Now, I don't remember the TV show ever taking a really sadistic horror route with its fantasies, like they did in this, which, like I said, I don't think it works. But be that as it may, that's what the plot of this incarnation of Fantasy Island kind of revolves around, or at least tries to revolve around. But right from the jump, it is a mess. Like I said, these people show up on the island and they're almost immediately thrown into their fantasies, and we as the audience really don't get a chance to get fully invested with these characters, on who they are, what their fantasies are. So that way when the shit really starts going bad, you know, maybe we have that investment with them that we care, but for the most part, we don't fucking care. I didn't fucking care watching this movie. I thought the cast was fairly solid. I really like Michael Pena. I think he's a terrific actor, but in my opinion, I think he was really miscast in the role of Rourke. I think that role requires a little bit more gravitas from the actor, and I just don't think Michael Pena has that sort of presence that like Ricardo Montalban had. God, if I could put my own fantasy into Fantasy Island, I probably would have put somebody like Antonio Banderas in that role. And I was shocked to see Michael Rooker in this. He's completely fucking wasted, but hey, I mean, he's in it. And the other one I liked was Maggie Q, and her fantasy storyline in this I was actually kind of really getting into. But I'll be honest, there was a part in this movie in the middle where I was kind of getting into it. You know, as I was sitting there in the theater watching this, I was like, this isn't as bad as the critics made it out to be. But holy fuck, that last act of the movie. So really the plot of this movie revolves around the fantasy of one of the characters. I can't remember her name. She's one of the main girl characters. I don't give a fuck. Her initial fantasy is to get revenge on a childhood bully. But then, by the end of the movie, it is revealed in one of the dumbest twists imaginable that her actual fantasy was to get revenge on the people that let her boyfriend or the man that she thought was her boyfriend die in a apartment fire. And you do see at one point in the movie that all these characters are connected. They were all in the apartment building at the same time that this fire was going on. But with her not being there, How does she know that all these people had the chance to possibly save her boyfriend and then chickened out? Because it's never really explained anywhere else in the movie how she comes across that info. It's like the movie just doesn't expect you to think along with getting the info that it's spoon feeding you. And not only that, but the island only grants you one wish. It only grants you one fantasy. So she already had her fantasy about getting revenge on her childhood bully, but then she gets a second one? Like, what? Now, if any of you watching this have seen this movie, and maybe I missed something and you could explain it in the comments, please do, because that shit left me confused. And that's my big problem with this whole movie. It wasn't that bad up to that point. Once it got to the end, it became like a Christmas Vacation, Christmas light knot ball of just a fucking big confusing mess. And it's not like I didn't understand what was going on or, I was having trouble following. It's just, it's like the movie was trying to connect the dots, but it was doing it in this fucking intertwining way that it was making it more confusing and more convoluted than it really needed to be. And I think that having too many of these fantasies going on all at once also aided in that confusion. I think they really should have just focused on maybe 2 or 3 characters max. I really liked the Maggie Q fantasy. I was getting into that. I didn't mind the girl with the revenge plot on her childhood bully and then the shit at the end, whatever the fuck that was. I actually, up to that point, I didn't mind it. And I kind of was into the soldier thing with his father. I thought those were good. The dude bro guys, they could have just been fucking left on the plane. That serviced nothing in this story. It was like it was just there to be dumb fucking comic relief. Oh yeah, and the cute little nod to the show at the end of this movie is that the Asian guy becomes Tattoo, which... But yeah, I got really nothing else to say about this movie. I just thought it was a mess. I thought it was a bland. And I gotta give it the fucking finger. Bullshit! Yeah, guys, there's just not much to say about Fantasy Island. It's Blumhouse's latest lame attempt to try to resurrect an existing property and do their own sort of stupid horror thing with it. It's just a mess of ideas. It's a mess of concepts. It's a movie that really doesn't know what it wants to be. And while it's not the worst movie I've seen this year, it certainly isn't good. Alright, freaks, that was my own rushed half-assed review of Fantasy Island. What did you guys think? Please post your comments below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you indifferent on it? Like I said, comment below. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Adios and GTFO.